We will start our hearing. Chief, you wanna start?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Unless if you want me to sing first.
Would you like me to speak first? I'll go first. Yeah. Yeah. This is new for me going first. So I have my green stuff here though, in case I start to fade. Let me just go over a few things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Lutz for the details of the contract. But these things I think will all be of interest to you, the counselors, and really for everyone in the city. So we currently have 423 sworn positions. 423. I'm sorry. We are funded for 423 sworn positions. We'd like to have 423. And keep in mind, I talk fast, folks. So if you don't understand something I'm saying, please stop me. But we have currently funded 423 positions, which we would love to have. We are currently at 386 sworn positions, of which 19 of those are still in our academy, expected to graduate August 26th of this year. So they are really of little help to us. So technically we have 366 officers that are working bodies for us right now. We're working to swear in another class on July 8th. So there will be almost a 2-month overlap of academies, which our training staff, which is one of the best in the nation, will be able to handle those classes like that. We haven't done that historically. I don't believe we've done those overlaps since 1985 when I came on. My academy was in the evening because there was an academy going on during the day. During that time in the 80s, we were doing the exact same thing, trying to dig ourselves out of a hole where there was little hiring years and years before that. It's the same thing we're trying to do. Keep in mind that hole is difficult to come out of because just as a graphic, even if you take the 30 that just hit the street as single officers, and they just hit the street a few days ago, plus the 19 we have in the academy, we have a number of, who can do the math on that? Because I don't know, it's obviously 49. It's still 8 short of the number we lost last year in retirements and resignations, which was 57. So we are hoping, and I want to thank you for the contract you just approved and the one you approved before that. We're hoping that it begins to stem, possibly not retirements, maybe, but certainly resignations as we become more competitive with these other agencies. That's what we need to stem. We're always going to have people retiring. People reach a certain age, they're ready to go, they retire. Resignations were very unusual for us last year, with 21 people leaving to go to other agencies. I think those contracts that you approved will help stem that. At least we're hoping that that happens.
So before you go, Chief, let me just ask a question right there. With the contract we approved, what could you say objectively that has materialized out of that?
What can you get?
The contract that we approved.
Right.
What would you say, apart from retirement, people retiring, obviously, but what could you say objectively as the change that has done?
Sure. So I'll tell you, and keep in mind it hasn't kicked in yet, but here's what it will be. It will help us recruit because we're more competitive with other agencies. When other agencies, keep in mind that civil service test, everyone picks off that civil service test in all of Central New York. So when they're looking around and they decide, wow, this department pays more, this one does, now we're very competitive with these other agencies. So they very likely will choose to come to our department, whereas before this contract, they may have chosen some other department. So it will help with recruiting, and we hope it will help with retention. We know from, and this isn't anecdotal, we know several of our main command officers who have a tremendous amount of experience and do a tremendous amount of work for us, who we didn't want to lose. When the last contract was approved, they stuck around because of that contract. So we lost all of that education in their heads, the experience, and the work they do. And again, not anecdotal, those two stayed around because of that last contract. So the answer to the simple question is we expect this to be able to help us recruit more officers and retain more officers.
Okay, and before I open it to other counselors, and then you will continue, is when on page 180, you could see the range of especially the leadership, right? And then when you get down to the bottom of that listing, it's a police officer, which start at 53,800 to about $83,000.
Right.
When you look at that, I mean, that's the base, you know, when recruits are coming in, that's what that is the salary package you're giving them, right? In terms of starting salary.
Yes.
What is that compared to, say, the sheriff department?
Sure.
Where is that range?
Sure, so
Where
I
do we
don't,
compare?
yeah, so Council, I don't know the exact numbers of it, we can get that to you. I do know when we entered contract negotiations, we had graphs that showed exactly what all these other agencies are making. And we based what we were talking about in the contract negotiations, and this was the last contract as well, based on those salaries that other agencies were taking. Not only entry salaries, but what they were making as they made it through the ranks. But we can get that for you. We have it already, I just don't have it in front of me.
Okay, and I think we spoke about this before, but this, maybe we put it aside to really dive into this. Probably need more information than just that. But if any other council want to follow up on this before Chief continue?
Yeah, and that would just, I know Chief Trudell said. Okay, he has that information already. We
Okay.
can get that for you.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
the incentives that we put in these contracts, is that gonna bring them up comparable to the other departments, even on the base rates for the entry-level officers?
So we are heading in the right direction.
We are absolutely heading in the right direction, yes.
All right,
I
okay.
think we all got to be cognizant, it's a lot tougher being a city police officer in Syracuse than it is being an officer in Williams or DeWitt or someplace like that, so.
Correct, and that's a good point, Councilor Hogan, and I think as a city, we need to recognize that and be able to do what we can in terms of monetary compensation, to be able to, you know, put those into consideration as well, and it's important to us, of course.
Absolutely.
One quickie before I move out the way.
Sure.
So with the base salary, that salary, is that benefits included? No, okay, so roughly going in at 53, you add on benefits, it probably will kick it up to what, 65, 70?
What's that, Rod?
25%. That's French, 30?
You don't have it?
He doesn't have his calculator anymore. Now he's the budget director.
Fringe. Fringe is like 30%.
Yeah, Fringe is 30.
I mean, I guess rule of thumb would be 30% for the pension and 7.5% for the Social Security, and then you have health care,
Right,
which
that's
young
what I'm
guys
saying.
don't cost as much, so it kind of depends how you think about it, but it probably gets just 1.5 times the pay.
It's around 70 to 72
About
starting.
70,000
Yeah.
total package.
Yeah, but
Okay.
Correct, but President Hudson is a total package, but the officers don't see that fringe. They may see it when they retire because they're
Or they
building
get
up a
sick,
retirement.
yes, if they get sick.
Yeah, they have sick time just like everyone else.
No, I'm not saying that. When they get sick and they see it's being paid for, then they'll see it as
Oh,
a
sure.
benefit.
Yep,
So,
they have good benefits, no doubt about it. But they don't see it in their salary line. That's what I was pointing out.
Continue, Chief.
Sure, thank you. So when we put this class on, this class that we're going to swear in July, that would be our 6th class. I think it's probably a record for this mayor that when I came on again, we were putting classes on pretty rapidly, but that'll be the 6th class under Mayor Walsh. And we're going to just continue to try to put classes on to dig ourselves out of the hole. We currently have about 27 candidates, 27, 29 in this process. We don't know how many we're going to lose before we get to the actual academy. But clearly, we're starting with smaller numbers to begin with, and that's going to be an issue for us down the road when we're trying to dig out of the hole. We continue to outfit and train our officers in the most up-to-date cutting-edge equipment and tactics. Real quickly, just want to go over this because I know a lot of you ask me these from time to time. Body cams. We continue to push out body cams. What we've done with ARPA money is purchased body cams so that we can outfit officers as soon as they come out of the academy. These officers that hit the street just recently were already trained in the academy on the newest body cam and were given and outfitted the body cam so that when they hit the road on their own, they had a body cam. And that's the case right now. We have money through ARPA to purchase body cams for this new class. that's going on right now, the 19, and then the further class down the road, so that they can be trained in the academy on the body cam, and then have them when they hit the road. So there's no, there's no open area where there's an officer without a body cam. Obviously, these are becoming extremely valuable for everyone, and we want every officer that goes on the street to have a body cam. So we continue to purchase them and outfit officers. Tasers, we just upgraded our tasers so that the officers have another tool, a non-lethal tool, when they're out there on the street. It's the newest taser, the Taser 7, has many upgrades to the old one we had, which was many, many years old and was beginning to break down and not be, we couldn't get parts for it. Our goal was to train all 220 officers by the end of this year and outfit them. Our training division, which once again, I mention this because here's another example, they're one of the best in the country. They hit that goal by April. All 220 officers, or whatever the number is, we've lost a few. Every officer in patrol right now, in uniform patrol, and sergeants are outfitted with the newest taser. And again, we hit that goal 8-9 months before we were trying to hit it. Virtual reality system. This came with the package with tasers. This is a very important component. This is a virtual reality system where we can put officers through various scenarios. Many of these are based on mental health issues. So we have scenarios that cover the various spectrums of mental health, including autism, Asperger's, Alzheimer's. It even has scenarios where folks that they're responding to are hearing impaired, so that they can learn in the classroom how to best deal with the situations that are going on, whether it's de-escalation, learning better techniques in communicating with folks that are going through these various scenarios. We have this system now. We've been using it. We've been training folks on it. We had Renette from CRB come in, and she went through a few scenarios herself. Very exciting technology that is brand new, and we have it, and we're training our officers on it right now. CIT, one of the topics that comes up all the time, crisis intervention training. Our goal, as you remember, was always 20% of the department. We currently have 81 officers trained on this CIT right now. That's the 40-hour-a-week one, the real one, the big one. That is 21% of our officers, so we've beaten that goal, and we continue. We will be putting on our 6th and 7th classes of CIT this year, which will push us well over that 21% with more officers being trained. As you recall, a year, maybe 2 years ago, we were able to train officers, a lieutenant and a sergeant, so that we could take over that training. We no longer had to rely on the county. We could do our own training. So this will be our 6th and 7th class on our own, training officers up on CIT. For those of you, and I think you all know, this is when you go to an issue we call it a PIC now, person in crisis. They have specific training on how to deal with that person, no matter what they're going through. We have numerous success stories now of officers that have been trained in this CIT who have gone there and used this training to save lives. Some where folks were literally on the edge of a parking garage and we're going to jump off, and they've used this training. So very valuable training, and we continue to push it out. Diversion Response, as you know, because you just approved some money, I think last week, we continue to work with Liberty Resources so that we can send clinicians to PICs when law enforcement doesn't need to go there. It's a great program, and we continue to work with them. Great organization, and we continue to push that program and expand on it. Last but not least, cops cameras. I mention this because everyone in the entire city is asking for them. And I want to give not only the counselors, but folks that are watching this YouTube updates. We have multiple projects in the pipeline right now. Salina and MLK, Furman Street, the Onondaga Ave corridor, Coolidge Ave expansion, a neighborhood expansion, the West Side expansion, which includes Hoffer Street, Delaware, Dudley, Gifford Street. We already have some on Gifford, so it's going to be an expansion. Salina Street, Calthrop, Ballantyne Road, and of course, Herkimer and Avery. I said that's last but not least, Herkimer and Avery. Here's what we're doing with folks. We have, for the first time that I can remember, and we've been putting up cameras since 2011, we have for the first time the money, but not the equipment. The supply chain is killing us. It's across the industry. We've tried to do workarounds, but it is across the industry. All these projects are in the pipeline. We have the money through ARPA and also through our state representatives, Pam Hunter and Bill Magnarelli. Well, we can't get the equipment, and we're working as hard as we can. What's probably going to happen as the only workaround we can get is put up fixed cameras instead of the PLZs. The PLZs are the newest ones, the ones you see everywhere that allow us to pan around and zoom. The fixed cameras are the ones we started with. They are exactly that, fixed. So we have to put, if we do an intersection, we put up more than one, so we cover all the intersections. But we can acquire those. So we're probably gonna start putting up fixed ones now in some of these projects, so we're not waiting forever. And then down the road, when the supply chain frees up, we will change those over to the PLZs, so we have the best cameras at these intersections. But right now, it's not money, it's not manpower, it's simply
Are the
equipment.
fixed ones new, or are you just changing their locations? The
These ones I mentioned are all brand new locations.
And we'll
So some
invest on
expansions
that
and some brand new. Yep.
Okay, so we have the money to invest on that first, and then have a second investment on the other ones, which, the good ones.
Oh, correct, Counselor, yes, correct. We would put up the fixed, and then we would replace all those with the best cameras, the ones that do the moving
And there's
around.
enough money for both.
Correct, we have money for both.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Chief, what did you name off on the north side?
I didn't name, none of those were on the north side right now. We do have other projects, but none of the ones we currently have in the pipeline are on the north side. It's not that we don't have cameras over there. We have them on Butternut Street and some key locations over there. I will tell you, they aren't in the pipeline, so I don't want to put them in here. But we're currently looking at major thoroughfares like Wolf Street. They already are on Hiawatha. They're already on Butternut Street, but there's Wolf Street and some other areas where we're having some gun violence over there. Park Street. So we are looking at those there, but they're not currently on the list. Once again, ample money to put them up over there.
So they're not on the list, why?
They're not on the list because these came before them.
Okay,
Yep, that's all.
okay.
I gotta tell you, Chief, I'm really happy because I heard Valentine Road there. The neighbors have just been, I think if they are listening, they will be excited to hear that that's happening.
Thank you. Yep.
Is there extra money for the north side cameras when the time comes, or no?
Yes, there is money, without a doubt, there's money.
Okay.
It's sitting there. And I don't like to say that because sometimes when I say that, people think maybe we can take that. It's sitting there for cameras. Folks are waiting for their cameras, and we want to keep it there for the cameras. But there will be money for the north side. I know you have a few locations as well. So,
Thank you, Chief. I have a question, Joe. Can I get a question? Thank you. Chief, I want to thank you for the cameras. I think that's amazing that you are spreading out through the community. But I have a question. Let me take this down. I have a question regarding training. I see that you're doing a lot of training for your officers, and this is awesome. But do we have any diversity training coming up for them with the officers?
yes, good question. We obviously had Dr. Strauss in, who did the entire department on cultural diversity, a program that went over very well, by the way. When we did the surveys, and you know how surveys go, either people don't turn them in or sometimes they're negative. It was overwhelmingly positive for this training. We're bringing him back in the fall to do some more training on that. And you're going to actually see a letter coming in front of you for to agree to go into a contract with him again, because we have to get approval for that. So you're going to see that possibly next time around, if not the next one, to do the exact same training, because it was so positive. Officers enjoyed it, and it was very valuable.
I think it's coming, yeah.
Yep.
I think I saw it somewhere. Go ahead, Carl.
Chief, I want to go back to staffing, and kind of going through the major functions underneath the sworn officers. I know you got a breakdown here of uniform patrol versus canine, and you may not have these numbers on you, but out of the roughly 423 that are sworn, do we have any kind of a breakdown of how many go to canine, how many go to recruitment, and so forth of those positions?
Sure. So who's in each one of those units? Is that what you're looking for?
The number of people.
Yeah, so we can get that for you very easily. We have what's called a monthly status report that comes out every month, and that's what it does. It breaks down that. I don't have it in front of me, but we can get that for you.
And then out of that, is there one function that tends to have the most vacancies out of the 423 versus the 386? And my instinct is patrol is the one that has the most amount of vacancies. Is that true, or?
It is true, only because, well, I don't know about vacancies, Counselor, but it is the only is the giant pool that all the other divisions and units pull from. So when CID or SID says we could really use 2 people, the only place to pull them is from patrol. So when I say not necessarily vacancies, what we try to do is be very careful about pulling out of patrol. We have minimum standards that we try to maintain, because those are the front line. Those are the ones responding to the calls. And if you pull from them, everything will break down. So, but we can show you vacancies, we can show you numbers and everything, because we have these meetings. Just recently had one where the DCs, clear with the DC of the SID and CID is going to try to argue for people for his. He needs people to investigate, he needs people to do drug work. But this DC in charge of patrol is going to say, I need so many people to cover midnights, 3 to 11, days. So, but let me just get that breakdown for you.
And I totally understand everyone's going to act rationally to try to make sure that they can do the job that they need to do. But I guess historically, of how we came to decide how many positions that are each, how did we do that? How did we come up with 423, and how do we determine how many go in which position?
Sure. So, listen, over the years, and I'm glad you used the word historical, because I'm the old guy in the room. Thank you. Over the years, I haven't the slightest idea. Oh, sorry. I didn't want to say that.
You have competition.
We, over the years, Counselor, I have no idea before I got up to the chief's office. There were times when I remember SID being close to 60 people. It's currently, I think, 19. These are the drug guys that people call all the time. We need drug work done. So since I've been up there, we have strategically looked at how do we handle the calls? Are we handling it? Do we have the right number? And that's what we worked off of. We've always worked off of, do we have the number in patrol? And if we have that accurate number, then we can begin to release people to those other units. Because those other units are always crying for officers, investigators. When I say the word crying, I don't mean anything disparaging. They deserve it. You wouldn't believe the amount of work that's being done in SID, for example, or CID with the gun violence and the homicides. But we have to maintain numbers in patrol. I will tell you, there was a time when we did a study, this was many years ago, to show where we needed the numbers. I wasn't in the chief's office at the time, so I don't know where that breakdown came from. It may be time to do another study like that. Because clearly, I will tell you this, and all of you know that, because you have your ears to the ground, and you hear it from your constituents. At the end of every shift, we get a breakdown of incidents that are noteworthy. And then at the bottom of that list, we get a list of the number of officers that were on duty and how many calls are waiting. That number continues to grow. None of us like to see it. The patrol officers don't like to see it, but at the end of the shift, there are a number of calls that haven't been responded to, and they get passed over to the next shift so that they're in the hole again. So a study may show us, in fact, that we need more people in patrol than less.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. And because I think from our perspective, we get the calls when the police department's not able to respond quickly to a call. We don't get the calls when it says, hey, you should have more people in audit, right? Because it's just by nature, it's not the front lines facing thing. And I think that's a challenge for us to be able to know, what's the need kind of in that back office or kind of that support functions. And we just don't have the education to be able to say, what's the right way to do it. So I think that's a good, I personally feel more comfortable saying, okay, we really need to staff up here because here's this study that educated us on what we need. So I think it's worth exploring for sure.
Gotcha.
The only context, Imrad, Budget Director, I would add is because you said, somebody said, where did 423 come from? And last year we had a back and forth because previous years would include unfunded heads. And last year we tried to get rid of, we got rid of unfunded heads across the board. So we looked at how many heads was the police department funded for at that time, and then basically carry that forward into the future, saying like, if the cost goes up, we'll make sure we still fund 423. So that's where kind of that number, so I'm hoping that number stays similar is the idea.
And I think Council Green, that has been, I think the Chief Trudell, that maybe you will recall, Chief, as well, that we have been talking about that. Where did we get this 423? But I think from our last conversation, in terms of shift and how many, minimum you need to have in a shift and having extra. And, you know, I think there was a calculation where that got us close to that. You know, for example, I think you said we cannot go below, I think 12. It's just right, or 19, something like that. It's just become not.
Yeah, so when we were talking about the staffing numbers, those are the minimum and critical staffing numbers on the shift. Right. So we will never go below the critical. We'll order officers to stay to get above that number, and then we'll hire up to the minimum using overtime. But that does not equate to the actual number of officers needed to effectively patrol the city and provide proactive policing at the same time. So respond for calls for service, and then have a third of the time to be able to address the complaints that come in from you folks, from the city, in a proactive manner. So the numbers that I gave were just bare bones minimum, critical numbers, minimum staffing numbers, not what you guys are talking about with what is needed to effectively patrol.
And I think we may need to get deeper in that conversation, Councilor Green, to really understand, and just like if we don't understand, I'm sure the rest of the constituent, a lot of them would not, you know, because it's probably not a public knowledge that would be easily understood or picked up. So I think we may want to put something
So
together.
let me ask you a question, and I think Pat and Nader can recall this, because like 11, 12 years ago, I think we were talking and the high numbers were like 470, 473.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Are you trying to get back to that number, or are you just trying to stay at 423?
Yeah, so good question, President Hudson. So we went with that number because at some point we knew we're not going to, in the conceivable future, reach that number. So we decided on a number that we could possibly reach, and then once we reach it, and we're struggling to do the 423 as you've seen with retirements and resignations. But it's almost like a ghost number to say, yeah, we could use 475 if we're never going to get there. So we picked a number of 423. We'd like to get there and then see what we can do with that. I will say what part of this study should be clearly urban policing and the idea that we need time to get out of our cars and engage with people. These officers are trying their best to do that, and they're not able to do it because they're going from call to call, and then they're 8, 10, 15 calls behind, and their sergeants are saying, take that call, take that call. Part of the study should clearly be some community policing component in there where they get out of their car and give them time. Keep in mind, there are departments around this country right now that are facing this diminishing resources and are deciding we're not taking traffic accidents anymore, we're not taking noise anymore, noise complaints, we're not taking any quality of life. They're deciding that, and we just need to be cognizant of that. What is our number to handle the call load? But what is our number if we want the type of policing that we want in the city?
470, okay. So, and then one more question, and I'm gonna sit back. I'm looking here on page 176, so we have no more Vice? Vice is gone?
Vice, yeah, we had to do away with Vice. We had a lot of retirements in SID, and we just kind of folded what we had left of them into, hey, Derek, can you just explain the Vice thing? I know we had retirements, and then we just kind of either folded them in, or maybe they all retired, but we have no Vice squad anymore, correct?
Yes, sir. And this kind of speaks to one of the questions that you had, sir. There are a number of units that we no longer staff anymore. Vice is one. We still receive a lot of complaints relative to prostitution, drug complaints. We no longer have a neighborhood anti-crime section, which was our, which was a drug unit that belonged to SID that handled the street corner drug complaints. We no longer have that. We no longer have a cold case homicide squad. We no longer have a domestic violence unit. We no longer have gun violence suppression detail. We no longer have forgery and financial crime section. And there's a number of other units that we no longer have. And so it's more than just, we've had to decrease our investigations bureau personnel to handle 911 calls, which is, as you point out, something that you guys hear the most about. But there are a lot of things that we hear about internally that you may not hear about, which is, why is it taking a detective a month to get to me on my burglary? And that's because we don't have enough detectives left to get to you on your burglary. We just don't have enough folks. We had to staff the road, which is, of course, important. We get a lot of calls on, we don't have a cold case homicide squad. We have 90 unsolved homicides in Syracuse. who's working on those homicides. We just don't have the people to staff that full-time anymore. Now, as we get tips, we certainly will address those complaints. We have people who review them, but now, as opposed to just investigating those homicides, what we do is they review them in addition to their other caseload. The SID detectives right now have over 700 complaints for 19 detectives, 700. So many of those are never addressed, just because we can't get to them, not because we're not interested in getting to them. So when we talk about staffing, and you said, how do you determine, the numbers of folks that you need in places? We need many more than we have. We need to staff a domestic violence unit. We need to staff a cold case unit. We need to staff all of this stuff. We just can't. We have to pick and choose. We need to respond to the major crimes, the in-progress crimes, and the 911 calls. That we have to do. There's plenty of other things that people expect us to do and that people would like us to do. We just can't do it. We just don't have the folks for it. So,
Chief, not to cut you off.
Yes,
is there
ma'am.
any kind of way, maybe you, Chief Cecil, can you send me, I'm gonna just speak for me, can I see all of the units that you had to eliminate?
absolutely. We have that all prepared, and we can give that to you. Sure.
Okay.
Send it to everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I want to ask one more question. So Chief, regardless of what we put in there with the last contract and this contract, we're still averaging 200 transfers?
Transfers.
It says the transfer request process.
Oh, the transfer request is, I would imagine, are
okay,
internally.
yeah, okay, got you. Just keep transferring.
Just transfer.
And then here's my question, and then this may go to Director Rudd. So if we are eliminating all these units, and because of lack of officers, we see that the budget itself is not reducing either. Help me understand that, Budget Director Rudd. Or is that you, Chief? Right. Because I'm trying to understand that if we are eliminating all these units because of lack of officers, and the budget doesn't reduce either.
Counselor,
we
that's
still-
because they're getting paid more money. We voted on 2 raises, so that's,
It's partly that, but keep in mind, we have a lot of unfunded positions. I'm sorry, we have a lot of funded positions that are vacant, so they don't reduce the budget. All those numbers between 186 and 423 are funded positions with no cop in them. So
what I'm trying, I guess where I'm trying to go with this is, based on what I'm hearing, this unit is eliminated because of lack of folks. I'm trying to see if, as we eliminate these units, what's the cost to that? What cost is it that we are eliminating with this? For example, if we say narcotic, for example, maybe what did we have, like 5, 6, 7, right?
So we were maybe 50, 60 at one point, the chief.
15, 60, right?
50, 60, and now I'm running at 24, and that includes command staff, 24, 23, that includes command staff.
Okay, so that number, right? If you look at the base salary of an officer here, and that doesn't include the leadership. You look at the base of the salary, you say 50, 60, Chief?
At one point.
At one point. So if you look at that, this is the time when you should have your calculator budget right. So 50 officers, 60 of them, right? Times 50,000. That's a lot of money, right? But it's pushing to like $1 million or close, right? Or $500,000, right? And that's just one unit.
but that wasn't last year. That
Right.
was decades
Right,
ago.
but I'm just saying it for the sake of argument, right? But what I'm trying to say is, if that unit, that one unit is cost that much, right? And you are eliminating probably 3, 4, 5 units, and there isn't a reduction at all in the budget.
So Counselor,
I'm trying
But
to,
they're picking up the numbers with the packages, $70,000 per officer.
right,
So that-
but what I'm saying is, as time goes, we are also increasing the amount of money. So it's not like the money that we are losing with department somehow is not getting addition. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is the numbers, we are losing officers rapidly. Yet the budget is somehow keep going up. See, I'm trying to understand the discrepancy.
The increase is
Yeah.
money over the course of the time span.
Right.
You're talking the increases?
Well, a large part of the increase is just collective bargaining, so the police, we were in theory kind of borrowing from the PBA, and now we're caught up. So when you have a multi-year retroactive collective bargaining agreement hit, it increases the pay rates, so to support the same level. So from a really high level, I would say the police department has the same, they're funded for the same level of staffing. They're empowered to manage their units as they feel necessary given the resources they have. So I think they're also saying they don't stop doing that stuff, they're just doing it in a different way, so it doesn't have its own dedicated unit, but they're basically empowered to allocate their resources as they deem appropriate. So yes, they're funded in theory, they have the same level of funding, and there's new civilian positions which should allow some flexibility, a little more flexibility on the uniform side.
It is, yeah, so it is partly that. Counselor, you have to keep in mind, so if you go with last year's contract to this one, it's some of what Counselor Hogan said. I mean, it's up, like, and Brian can go over the exact numbers, but I believe 6.5 million of the increases from last year to this year are contractual. So people are getting paid more. And keep in mind, again, it's not like we've lost officers, but we still have 423 funded positions. So there's a whole group of, empty spots there that are being funded in this budget. But a lot of it is salaries.
In essence, from 2 years ago, the police department budget's about 20% higher, correct, Councilor Rudd, or former Councilor Rudd?
That's the prop.
Yeah. It's about, so I mean, just because of the raises and the contract and all that. And I think what we do as counselors is that consistently in every neighborhood meeting, people want more police officers. And I always emphasize, if you want more police officers, we got to have a highly trained police department, which we do, and good people cost money. That's all there is to it. And the people, our people we represent sort of understand that. Our constituents want police, so we want the best we can afford, and that's what we have. And I think I wanted to ask a couple of questions on the logistics. One is, are we all set as far as, all digital as far as the payroll system goes? Are we all, no more slips of paper, those phantom slips of overtime? Are we all set on that?
Yeah, it would appear so, Counselor. I mean, we're not doing pink slips anymore. So we're not doing paper, but we just recently ran into another glitch with that program. So as you know, it shut down for a little while as well.
Well, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, it shut down for a little while, froze up. So we had to go back to paper for a little while. And anyways, it's back up and running. We're not doing paper anymore, but there's a new glitch to it that we're trying to work our way through.
Because I think what affects, being around for a while, logistically, and maybe Chief Trudell can address this. We have a patrol, three, obviously uniform patrol, 3 platoons, and sometimes there's like that where one captain has to sort of ask guys who are coming off their shift to work as overtime, correct? And I'm just wondering, does those captains and lieutenants in charge of the platoon, are they confident in the number of people they're getting every shift? Because I know that used to radically change sometimes in the summers, vacations, sick time, and all that.
Can you, just so I understand your question, sir,
If I'm a captain, I think I'm going to get 27 officers, 26 officers for my platoon. Do I get sometimes a curveball thrown at me and I got 20?
Often, for a number of reasons, but training comes into play.
So you know about that ahead of time. You guys know all about that. I'm talking about unexplained, like at the last minute somebody calls in sick.
Well, sure, that stuff can happen too.
It affects.
It affects operations. It affects money, and Brian can probably add to it. But when we talk about the cost of the police department remaining, or the budget remaining constant at a time when we're losing positions, in addition to the fact that some of those open positions are funded, When we had more police officers, we were able to do things and address things like things that are important that you guys hear about: dirt bikes, ATVs, fireworks, those types of things. When we have more police officers, we can just work that into our daily operations. As the number of police officers shrinks, we still have to address those things, but now we're paying overtime to address them. And so that's where I think you see an overtime cost. So our numbers are going down. Why isn't the budget going down? Well, we still have to get those jobs done, some of them. We're not getting them all done, clearly, but we're getting a lot of them done. The things that we hear most from constituents, all the quality of life issues, the things that need to be addressed, we're now paying overtime because we don't have the folks, vice complaints, prostitution complaints. When folks call us and say, hey, there's prostitutes in my driveway, we have to do something. We don't have a vice unit anymore, and patrol's 30 calls backed up at the end of the shift. There's 30 calls waiting, so what do? We have to pay somebody overtime to go address that complaint for those folks. So body-worn cameras, we never used to have that in our budget, right? That wasn't a thing back when we had 470 cops, to President Hudson's point. We didn't have body-worn cameras. Now we have body-worn cameras, so we have less people, but now we have new costs. So we're not paying them in salary anymore, but now we're paying new technology. We have to maintain cops cameras that we didn't have to maintain years and years ago. So we're taking on costs that we never used to have. All that money used to go towards salaries, but now as the positions go down, we're still spending that money, but now instead of spending it on people, we're spending it on technology, overtime, and things like that. So I think that's probably a lot of times why you're seeing a reduction in folks, a reduction in staffing, but no real savings in terms of salary, because we're taking that money to pay something else. That money is still being used, it's just not being used to pay folks anymore. Now it's being used to pay tasers and stuff that we didn't used to have to fund before. So I think that's might be some of the reason, if that makes sense.
And I get that, and I know there are times when we have written grants, and grants have come back with like for cameras, for example, tasers, and I know DOJ, we have written grants, and they award us to be able to do certain stuff, and those additional stuff come with funding, and what I'm saying is right.
I'm sorry, sir, if I could just jump in there. A lot of those things come with funding up front, and then the funding ends, and now we have to find the money to continue those programs. Cops cameras are a great example. We get grant money to put the cameras up, but now we have a list of cameras about this long that we could send you that don't work anymore. And so we get calls from neighbors that say, hey, listen, there was a shooting or a robbery right outside my house. There's a camera. What are you guys doing? The camera doesn't work. Where's the money to fix it? Well, we got the grant money to put them up, but we didn't get any money to fix it. So there's no maintenance on the back end. So grants are both a blessing and a curse. Grants help us get up and running, but that money oftentimes is good for a specific period of time, and that's it. The money runs out, and now it's up to you guys to figure out how to pay for it. Body-worn cameras. Hey, we're going to give you the body-worn cameras for free, and this price for 5 years, this is a steal. We love it. After 5 years, the price goes up, and you guys got to find a way to put it in your budget, because the ARPA money paid for it. We're gonna pay for you to buy the cameras. We're gonna pay for 5 years. At year 6, good luck. Now it's in your budget. Pardon?
Storage, chief.
Storage is another, incredibly expensive thing. So, and that's another thing, cops cameras, all this stuff, all this technology is fantastic, right? We love the technology because it helps us solve crimes. It helps us provide information to the public, but that technology comes at a cost. It takes time to review cops cameras. So before the cops cameras now, I wouldn't want to have to solve a homicide without a cops camera anymore because they're so valuable. But it takes some detective 8, 12, 16 hours to review one camera. And you may get to the end of that 16 hours and say, this camera showed me nothing. I got to go to the next camera. And so they're spending 16 hours to review this. When we have a use of force, when we have a civilian complaint, someone has to review those cameras, body-worn cameras. All that has to be put on a server to be stored. Those servers cost money. The storage costs money. We have to hire people now to redact video. We never had to hire people to redact video because we never used to have video.
That's what I was going to ask you, because are you still using retired police officers to come in there and review the cameras?
If we have retired officers available, and if we have funded positions, which we don't have enough.
I have a question. So when we get more officers come back, are we gonna replace these positions? Like the the vice department, cold cases and domestic violence, will we bring people back?
If I had the keys to the castle, cold case would be the first place I'd put people because that's where I came from. But that would be the goal, is to replace the folks. But now we're talking about, so here's the difficult thing from a budget perspective, which is we're spending the same amount of money today that we spent with fewer cops because we have to fill in technology and we have to fill in overtime. We have to do it. So we'll lose some overtime costs if we get more cops. We're still gonna have to pay for cops cameras, body worn cameras. We're gonna have to pay for storage, server space. All that's gonna be there. But now we need to hire those cops so that we can put a domestic violence unit back, so we can put a cold case unit back. Next thing you know, our budget need's gonna be up here now. But that's probably more, I mean, the goal that we've all had a discussion is to hire those folks back. We'd like to fund those positions because those positions are services to the public. Those positions provide answers to victims' families. Of course, we'd like to have that back, but it's a matter of being able to fund it.
Are we gonna ask for, of course, I'm asking personally, so just so you know. Are we gonna also ask for more help throughout? So I don't see anything in the budget where there has any municipalities out there, like the sheriff's department or any like DeWitt, to come help throughout the year. Does that come out of our budget?
No, when they offer their help, or if we collaborate with them a lot on that GIVE, the gun violence initiative, all of that comes out of their budget, not ours. Although with GIVE, it's part of a grant, so they're getting paid and reimbursed by the state DOJ. So, but if we were to ask them for something, it wouldn't come out of our budget. We have a really good working relationship with every agency that borders the city. And to be honest, Counselor, we help them a lot more than they help us. When they have a major incident, they look to us to help them out.
So they just take and give less.
One point about the 423 that hasn't come up that I know Lieutenant Lutz thinks about a lot is there's no line in there that pays for like when you retire. He said there were 57 retirements or resignations. All of those typically have a payout because people have earned time that they need to be compensated for. And those payouts are basically always above 50 grand. So if you have 50 at 50 grand, you're in millions of dollars really quickly. So they are funded for 423, but they do have to essentially pay for those separations out of that money. So they do struggle to get to 423. It kind of can balance out in the long run because they're usually more expensive officers who are leaving and less expensive officers fill in. So you can kind of balance it, but that is one big chunk of consideration that hasn't been mentioned.
On the payout time, is there like a cap? Is there like, okay, you can carry 10 days for payout, or can they just carry all their time over?
No, there's caps and limitations to all of it, correct, Brian?
Yeah, there's a cap on the vacation days, and there's a cap on the comp time or the bonus time, which typically is the most substantial portion of it.
Okay, and then I'm gonna ask this question. It's contractual, so I know I probably should shut up, but I'm not. Do we still have in the contract that if I show up for 15 minutes, I get the 4-hour pay?
If you get ordered in, it's a contractual thing. But yeah, we don't have the old days where you're not getting ordered in, we ask you to go to a meeting for 15 minutes, say a command officer, and we give you 4 hours. A lot of that's been done away with. But if you get ordered in and say you're on your way into a barricaded situation and then it resolves itself and we say we don't need you, you're going to get 4 hours contractually. Yep.
But you said not for the neighborhood meetings type.
I don't believe we are doing that anymore. Are we? I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Are we paying for neighborhood watch meetings? Are we giving 4 hours for?
I think most of the officers that are attending now are attending while they're working, primarily. But if there are folks who attend or who have to attend because they have a particular thing to speak about and it's not during their hours, then contractually we're obligated to pay them the 4 hours.
Okay.
Speaking of that, I noticed in here that your proposed this year, or for the budget 22-23, you went from 360 to 180 for neighborhood meetings. So are you cutting back on attending those, or how does that number change? Why?
I think one of the things that we're able to do is now that the captains have been moved to the shifts, So before, when the captains were all on days, any neighborhood watch meeting, any TNT meeting, any meeting that occurred at 4, 6, 7 o'clock at night, they were getting paid overtime. Now we have captains and other folks that have moved to the different shifts, so they're able to attend those meetings on regular time.
But it says number of meetings attended was 315, was 360, and the proposed is 180, so that number's going
The
down.
number of meetings or the money, I'm sorry.
Well, it says meetings attended.
Yeah.
I don't know where that number,
It's a curious number.
that's not a number that
I'm
I've,
not really sure. Brian showed me this earlier. I'm not really sure where that's coming from, unless it's from Tony Borelli, who's maybe consolidated some neighborhood watch groups.
Tony Borelli consolidated meetings, that's where it came from.
Okay, good.
And so instead of more, so it's not us, it's the frequency of meetings by Tony.
Okay. I give you guys a lot of credit for attending all the community meetings that exist, because I see you in there, and I love having you at the meetings, but part of me is like, no, go to the streets, that's where we need you, just leave us a piece of paper, we'll read it, but your presence is so important everywhere you are, so thank you for attending
ma'am.
all of that.
So how many civilian, Chief, the mayor mentioned that we were going to transform some of the positions that are in-house, that we're going to be more police officers and get them out the street. So how many of those civilian positions, how many of those positions are becoming civilian?
Great question. That one's more like a Rubik's Cube, changing all the time, so I'm gonna hand that one off to Deputy Chief Shaw, because he knows the numbers.
So when Chief Buckner first came in, he did this process where he tried to identify people that were police officers wearing guns and badges, doing traditional jobs that can be done by civilians, working in records, working in property, a bunch of different jobs we identified. We identified, just in the Support Services Bureau, which I've overseen since he came here, 22 positions that we could civilianize. We got 3 left to do. We've done a good job of, through attrition, with the union's agreement, getting people back out onto the street, the positions back on the street, but we haven't done a good job of funding the backfill, because somebody left. If I'm a police officer, and we've done some of it, but some of it we haven't, that works in records, and I retire, and we don't put somebody there, somebody's got to do that work. So some of the funding is to pay for that, civilian positions, to backfill for police positions. So just to reiterate, the 22 that we identified in support services, there's only 3 left to do, and all 3 of them tell me that they're leaving soon, probably within the next month or 2.
Okay, looking at the civilian complement, what is, I've never seen it, what's a command executive? Is that something new, or?
Are you talking about this?
It says command executive, it's supposed to be like the same level as the deputy chief.
It's the new thing the mayor announced the other day. Counselor, is that what you're talking about?
I guess so.
Sure. Yes. So it hasn't even been posted yet. It's still in development.
What's going to be posted?
Yeah. Yeah.
What, you gonna apply, Hoagie?
No,
I'm messing with you, man.
I just wondered what the job
Sure.
duties are and what the position is, because it's sort of odd, and I just wondered if anybody with equal background, because you're going to be interacting with police officers.
Yes. So that,
Like a lawyer or something?
it could be. I think Deputy Mayor Owens is coming up. Did you want to? Yeah.
So it's a position, as we talked about, what we really want to be able to do is, oh, that's
We
sticking.
did that on purpose, by the way. I'd like to see you dance a little.
What we really want to be able to do is to have these very busy folks over here be able to work on and concentrate on criminal activity. So bringing in an individual like this, and the chiefs have been thinking about this, we're in CALIA certification process, the police reform activities that we're constantly going on that Mark Rustin works with me every day about. Help me run them off. We're thinking about it right now, but really all of the community-based kind of work that we're doing right now and working hard to continue to expand, this individual can come in. Now, does a law degree help an individual understand all of the legal aspects? It does. Will we make a requirement? We're not sure yet, because we don't want to, we might make it preferred but not required type of thing. So we're developing it right now.
Is there a commission? I mean, what's this person supposed to accomplish? I mean, they're going to be charging the civilian employees?
No. So the chief is responsible for all of the staff under the police department. This individual is to provide support to the chief's office around community initiatives. We're doing more and more of this, whether it's police reform activity, whether it's PAL, community engagement, help me, Chief.
So yeah, so all the certifications too are all the, CALIA certification, New York State certification, Lexipol, where we're changing all the policies, things like that. Keep in mind, Pat, even at my rank, one of my jobs, and I just kind of inherited it, is tracking these benchmarks from the criminal justice reform and all those ARPA monies. We have tasers, body cams, all these various things we purchased through ARPA, and there's all these benchmarks you have to hit because it's grant money and benchmarks for criminal justice reform as well. And I'm doing most of that, and it would be a great help to have somebody else do that, as the deputy mayor said, so we can concentrate on police work.
But, I mean, this person won't be in the line of command. I mean, this person isn't going to tell a sergeant or something to patrol Butternut Street or something like that. I mean, this person will be sort of aligned with the police department, but won't be in the line of command. I'm just wondering about the liability.
No, not in the line of command. This individual is responsible to the chief.
Oh, just to the chief? So
Yes, yes.
So
They have no oversight over the rank and file of the police.
It's $100,000 a year. Maybe will apply.
I told you this.
Let me ask these quick questions before we shut down. So, is there any kind of a way, when you talk about the ARPA money being used to fund cameras, is there any kind of a way that you could set some aside for the maintenance of them, for the replacement of them? No, yes, sir?
Yeah, so we probably won't with ARPA, but President Hudson, we have money in our budget. That's why when I talk about this money, we set aside money in our budget for, and we have for several years now, for maintenance and repair. So the issue that DC McGork mentioned is accurate. We have multiple cameras down. The question, the issue now is not money, and it's not the we contract with IK Systems. They've gone out and tried to like Band-Aid these things together. They can't get the components to fix them.
And then one more question, then I'll let my counselors go. Just need to ask this question. I know for years we talked about, it's going to be one of your nemesis. We talked about take-home cars. Have we reduced that number?
Great question. I don't, you probably don't know that off the top of your head, right? All
right, y'all
The
get
city auditor is shaking his head. Okay. I can get you the breakdown, though. I know you like to see the breakdown, who's got them, where they go, that kind of thing. We can give you the usual breakdown of the cars. Not a problem.
Thank you.
So just for clarification, Deputy Mayor, is this a new position going to supervise all the civilian unit? Is there going to be their power? Or what's the power coming with the position?
The power coming with the position is working directly with the staff in the chief's office. We have learned through our process that combining community-based thought processes, community-based individuals who understand just the flow of community communications and interactions with the work that the police department already does there, it really puts us in a position to put this person in doing some of the work that you heard today about community meetings, PAL, that type of work. Jimmy is doing an outstanding job. How can this person even help Jimmy to expand PAL without putting it on the shoulders of Deputy Chief Schaaf, who I need out there with quality of life issues that you all want us to make sure we're addressing? It really is to put us in a position so this command staff can concentrate on the criminal or quality of life things that are going on in our community. So if I can take some of the things off of their plate for this individual, and for many of the things that you might call, this individual can actually get on the ground and pull the weeds out to find out what is causing the problem and work with the chief and the police staff to address it.
Okay. I think we would love to continue to have this
Can I just squeeze in one last one?
Please.
I'm just, the one thing and maybe you want to stay up, Deputy Mayor, I don't know, but whoever can answer it. One thing I was really excited about when we did the search for Chief Buckner was the increase that he accomplished at his time in Arkansas of recruitment and retention of minority officers. And just the last class I saw, I don't know, there was maybe one dude with a tan, I don't know, like there was not, we're still at 95% white, so, and I don't mean this as a criticism of our suburban white officers, because I appreciate everyone who's doing the job, but it doesn't feel like the needle has moved in the last few years, certainly not to the degree it needs to.
One thing since we came on board is that our history didn't prove that we used it when we have it. You miss something that you had when you lose it, was the consent decree.
Yeah.
So that's gone. It's gone, but it's quite not gone. They're kind of telling us that you can figure out some kind of hybrid to be able to. The bottom line is that it gave us a path that historically, effectively, we did not use. Yeah. But it's gone now. The other thing is that the pure numbers of people applying to want to be police has plummeted.
Yeah, I absolutely get that. I realize it's kind of like asking for toast when you're starving. I mean, it's.
But we have some, Sergeant Tom, Julie Shulsky, we have some great people really looking at this hard to say that how can we improve recruitment? How can we, reach out and they're collaborating with numerous people. First of all, is getting people through that test.
Yeah.
And the chief wants to. Chief Buckner, and correct me if I'm wrong here, First Deputy Chief Cecil, is really wants some flexibility, and he has pushed on civil service at the county to say, I would like to have the liberty to use another scale by which to prioritize people that isn't purely based on a test score.
Yep.
And so they have told us no. He doesn't have that, they don't have that liberty. We're pushing back to say, show us how we don't have that liberty.
Right.
We haven't gotten an answer yet. So we're not letting that argument go.
Maybe I'll just drop, I know we're already at time and I don't want to keep banging on about, but it might be something for us as a council to look at as a body again, because Buffalo has changed their civil service test, and I believe, other municipalities in the state have looked at different ways to use a different testing system or whatever to ensure that we do get locals, that we do get minorities engaged in the process. So it might be something for us to look at as a team.
And Ruthie just wanted me to make sure from her marketing brain that the work that Sergeant Tom, we just went through an RFP committee to bring on a consultant again. The level of recruitment work that they're doing and changing and how they're doing it is different than we've ever done before. Bringing in Solon Quinn, doing the work that he's been doing. Yeah. He's been doing some outstanding stuff with the police department. Just the number of applicants is probably the lowest you've ever seen, right?
Yeah, I've heard. I definitely heard. And I hope the SPD doesn't take it as a. I'm aware of the context and the situation with the low numbers and everything that's going on. I realize that the years we've had, and I don't mean it as critical, but it's still like, man.
No, you're right. We want the flexibility outside the test.
What she's saying is right. We went to Buffalo. We looked at their model. Yeah. We went to the county. And we kind of asked them, could you kind of let us do our own thing with our city hiring? And basically the county was like, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, okay. So
we're asking them to tell us where the regulation says we can't do that.
Is there a legal remedy for this? Is there a legal remedy to the county?
Might have to look to our corporation counsel.
Yes, so we're pushing back to tell them, show us the regulation. We haven't seen it yet. The next step would be asking Stu to talk to their lawyers to say, tell us what the issue is.
Yeah, because personally, we can do our own testing inside the city and keep moving.
We would need a bigger budget.
I know we would.
Okay.
But we would still be able to do that because I think it's unbalanced. The civil service test is antiquated as
across departments.
So
across departments.
I said that. Yeah, I said that anyway. WCAY.
All right, that will conclude public safety and police budget hearing. Thank you so much.